Our story begins with a girl named Sarah. As she sleeps on the couch, her father, Joel, is on a business call, desperately trying to keep a contract together. He wakes Sarah up, telling her it's time for bed, but Sarah wants to give him his birthday present, a brand new watch to replace his broken one. He jokes that it doesn't work, prompting a sarcastic laugh from Sarah. Sarah falls asleep shortly after, and Joel carries her to her bed. Some time later, Sarah is woken up by a frantic call from her uncle, Tommy. Tommy is urgently asking for Joel, but before he can explain, the phone line cuts out. She heads to Joel's room to tell him about Tommy's call, but Joel isn't there. The TV is reporting chaos downtown, but the broadcast is interrupted by an explosion, one Sarah hears outside, indicating it's not far from the house. As Sarah enters the study, Joel appears in a panic, grabbing his gun and warning Sarah that their neighbor Jimmy is acting very strangely and may be sick. Jimmy bursts through their door. Joel pleads with Jimmy, but he doesn't listen, prompting Joel to neutralize Jimmy just in time. They run out the front door and see that Tommy has just arrived. Everyone gets into Tommy's vehicle, deciding to leave the city. Joel and Tommy are confused about what's going on, struggling to understand why phones and radios are down. Tommy mentions that the army has set up roadblocks leading out of the city and that many citizens are dying, though he doesn't know why. Along the way, they see people in need of help, but Joel refuses, insisting they keep driving. They get stuck in traffic, and the person in front of them is attacked by what appears to be a fast-moving zombie. Tommy finds a detour, but as they maneuver around a parked bus, they're blindsided by another vehicle. They awaken to people running and screaming. Joel escapes the car wreck, but is attacked by a zombie. Tommy saves Joel just in time, and checks on Sarah. Sarah's leg is broken and she can't walk. Joel carries her through the streets while Tommy protects them. Chaos surrounds them with zombies attacking citizens and fires engulfing the city. The trio heads through a back alley and into a business, but Tommy can't get the door shut as zombies close in. In a brave act, Tommy tells Joel and Sarah to run for the highway, promising to meet them there. Joel and Sarah run down a dirt path as they're being chased, but just as they're about to be caught, a soldier guns down the zombies. Joel pleads for help, but the soldier, over his radio, asks his commander what to do with them, noting that there's a little girl. Reluctantly, the soldier raises his weapon and fires. They try to run, but Joel drops Sarah, and just as the soldier is about to finish him off, Tommy arrives and takes him out. Unfortunately, Sarah has been hit multiple times. She begins to fade away as Joel and Tommy stand there helpless. In a tragic event, she dies in Joel's arms. Now, 20 years later, in the summertime, Joel is awakened by a loud knock in his dilapidated apartment. A woman named Tess walks in and pours herself a drink. Joel questions where she's been. Tess replies that she was in the West End district making a drug deal, but Joel doesn't like that she went alone. She says the deal went well and that they got enough ration cards to last a couple of months, but on her way back, she was jumped by some goons sent by someone named Robert. Tess says she knows where Robert is hiding, and Joel is eager to get revenge. They head through a back alley where they arrive at a ration distribution center managed by the army, where a line of citizens is waiting. Further down the street, the army is extracting people from their homes in an effort to test them for any zombie-related diseases. Tess and Joel approach an army checkpoint, but as they are let through, a truck explodes. One army soldier begins shouting, blaming a revolutionary militia organization called the Fireflies. They run and make their way into a different building, where Tess mentions they will have to get to Robert by taking a hidden path outside the city walls, something Joel isn't a fan of. On the way, Tess talks with a lookout who mentions that Marlene, the commander of the Fireflies, is also looking for Robert. Joel and Tess enter a room that has a secret tunnel hidden behind a TV stand. Underground, there's a secret base of operations with guns and other equipment they use whenever they venture beyond city limits. They continue down various paths, entering rundown buildings and eventually arriving at a hallway. Tess notes that there are spores in the air and that they must use gas masks to protect themselves. Further along the path, they run into some aggressive zombies. Joel stealthily takes one out, but leaves the others, as ammunition is scarce and he doesn't want to waste it. After reaching the surface again, they continue until they find an inconspicuous entrance guarded by a child. Tess bribes the kid with ration cards to check if there are any soldiers or any of Robert's men ahead. Once cleared, they arrive at a little-known trading hub where people are selling various items. Eventually, Tess finds a man standing in front of an alleyway. She bribes him with more ration cards, asking if Robert is down that way. The man tells her Robert is hiding at a nearby wharf. As they make their way there, a few of Robert's men stop them, threatening Tess and telling them to turn back. Tess refuses. This angers the men, and Tess responds by shooting one dead. Joel takes out the other two, and they head down to the wharf, where they spot Robert speaking with one of his men. After taking out a few guards, they force their way into an office where Robert is hiding. Robert fires a few shots at them, but then decides to flee. They chase him into an alleyway where he becomes trapped in a dead end. Robert pleads with Tess, but as he tries to run, Tess strikes his leg with an iron bar. Tess questions him about a gun shipment he owed them. Robert says he doesn't have it, claiming he owed someone else too. Tess demands to know where he sent the guns, and Robert admits he sold them to the Fireflies. Robert tries to convince them to go after the Fireflies to retrieve the guns, but Tess isn't convinced and shoots Robert dead on the spot. Tess suggests they go find the Fireflies and explain their situation. As she says this, Marlene appears nearby. Marlene, with a wounded abdomen, questions why Tess is there. Marlene then asks for Robert, but sees he's already dead. Tess demands the return of the gun shipment, but Marlene initially refuses and instead offers them a deal. She says she needs something smuggled out of the city, but doesn't reveal what it is. Joel questions Marlene's authority, saying the army has been wiping out the Fireflies recently. Before they can continue the deal, they hear the army searching the area nearby. Tess quickly agrees to Marlene's offer, and they make their escape. Marlene leads them to a door that will take them to a safe house. After silently eliminating a few soldiers along the way, they step through the door into an abandoned building. Inside the safe room, a young girl named Ellie threatens them with a knife, but Marlene immediately orders her to stand down. Marlene explains that Ellie is the cargo they need to smuggle to the Capitol building, where another group of Fireflies will be waiting for them. If they agree to this mission, Marlene promises to deliver the weapons shipment they wanted, along with extra supplies. Joel interrupts, shocked to discover that Ellie herself is the cargo they're smuggling. Tess grows angry, pointing out that the Capitol is far away, and insists she won't agree to the deal unless she sees the weapons first. Marlene agrees to show Tess the weapons and asks Joel to escort Ellie. However, both Joel and Ellie initially protest. Ellie asks Marlene how she knows them. Marlene responds with a story about how she was close to Joel's brother, Tommy, who was once part of the Fireflies. Reluctantly, Joel agrees to the deal after Tess convinces him. As Joel and Ellie continue their journey toward the Capitol, they hear an announcement blaring over a loudspeaker, warning that curfew is about to begin. Joel leads Ellie to a safe room, where he immediately crashes on the couch to rest while they wait for Tess. Some time later, Joel wakes up. Ellie casually mentions that he mumbles in his sleep and had a bad dream. She also shares that she's never been outside the city and doesn't think the world could be any worse than what she's already seen. Joel presses Ellie about what the Fireflies want with her, but is interrupted when Tess walks in. Tess explains that she's seen the weapons shipment and is even more convinced they should go through with the deal. The group resumes their journey toward the Capitol. They eventually make it to a street outside the city walls. Joel climbs out of a broken semi-trailer, only to be ambushed by a soldier. All three are forced to stand by as they undergo a scan for the infection. Tess attempts to bribe the soldier, but it's no use. As Ellie is being scanned, she stabs the soldier in the leg. A fight ensues while Joel tackles one soldier, and Tess quickly takes out the other. Joel neutralizes the other soldier with his own gun, giving them a moment to regroup. Tess picks up the scanner and uncovers an astonishing truth. Ellie's scan has come back positive, confirming she is infected. Joel demands answers as Ellie shows them a patch of her arm that's infected, but claims it's been there for 3 weeks. Tess doesn't believe her, insisting that anyone infected turns into a zombie within 2 days. Before they can process Ellie's story, the group is forced to flee as more soldiers arrive. They make their way through ditches, avoiding both vehicles and soldiers with flashlights. After successfully evading the patrols, they climb into a large hole in the street and crawl through a tunnel. When they exit the tunnel, they are officially outside the city quarantine zone the military enforces. Tess presses Ellie again about what the Fireflies want with her. Ellie explains that the Fireflies are working in a different quarantine zone with doctors trying to find a cure, and because her infection hasn't turned her into a zombie, she may have a unique resistance that could produce a working vaccine. Though skeptical, Tess and Joel agree to continue toward the Capitol. The journey takes them through a series of destroyed buildings, where they encounter a terrifying new type of zombie that is blind, but able to hear the slightest noise, called a clicker. Joel quickly takes down the clicker with a shiv, clearing the way. After navigating through many more clickers, they pass through an old subway station before emerging back into the open air. Continuing to the Capitol building, they proceed to a garage door. As Joel is opening it, they hear a horde of zombies approaching. Joel is grabbed but manages to get inside just in time as the zombies pound on the door. They find themselves in a history museum but are unsure of which direction to go. Joel sees a path and lifts a heavy wooden beam for the girls to squeeze through but drops it, separating him from them. Clickers are heard nearby, forcing Ellie and Tess to run. Joel searches for the girls through the museum, taking out numerous clickers along the way. He enters a hallway and neutralizes a zombie that is beating on the door to the room Ellie and Tess are trapped in. Inside the room, Tess is struggling with a zombie but manages to kill it. Reunited, everyone climbs to the roof. They cross a wooden plank to another building, where Joel notices Ellie enjoying the view. Tess, however, notices Joel seems distracted and tells him to stay focused. A short time later, they arrive just outside the Capitol. As they enter, they are met with a grim sight. Tess becomes severely distressed upon discovering that the Firefly group they were supposed to meet has been eliminated. She frantically searches a dead Firefly for a map or some kind of clue about where to go next. Tess asks Ellie where the lab is that she's supposed to be taken to, but Ellie doesn't know. Joel tries to convince Tess that the mission is over and that they should head back home, but Tess vehemently disagrees. Joel tries to grab her, but Tess demands that he not touch her. Ellie then has a startling revelation about Tess, claiming she must be infected based on her reaction to Joel's touch. Tess doesn't deny it. Joel, in disbelief, demands to see her wound. Tess reveals she was bitten on the neck during the fight with the zombie back at the museum. She compares her wound to Ellie's, explaining that Ellie's bite doesn't look nearly as bad after 3 weeks, whereas hers is already much worse after only an hour. Tess asserts that Ellie must truly be immune and insists that delivering her to the Fireflies is of the utmost importance. She tells Joel to find Tommy, as he would know where the Fireflies are working with doctors to create a vaccine. However, they are interrupted by soldiers arriving outside the capital. Tess decides to make her last stand, not wanting to turn into a zombie. She explains that she can buy Joel and Ellie some time by fighting the soldiers, sacrificing herself for their mission. She pushes Joel to leave, but he is in shock, realizing this will be the last time he sees Tess alive. Joel and Ellie head into the next room, where Joel hears gunfire and Tess screaming. They go upstairs and look from a balcony, where they see soldiers infiltrating the building as Tess lies dead in the middle of the room. They jump to another part of the capital, where Joel finds a hunting rifle on a dead firefly and make their way outside and into an underground subway system. Some soldiers see them enter and begin firing from a truck. They run into a room where Joel is forced to put on his gas mask to protect himself from spores floating in the air. As they evade a couple of soldiers, Joel questions Ellie about how she can breathe in the spores and not get infected. Ellie responds that she wasn't lying about her immunity. Deeper in the subway, Joel proceeds through deep water in an old train car where Ellie reveals she doesn't know how to swim. Joel searches for something Ellie can stand on to cross the water. He finds a wooden pallet and helps her across, after which Ellie drops a ladder for Joel to climb up. They escape to the outside and take a moment to rest. Ellie begins to apologize about Tess, but Joel, furious, demands that she never bring Tess up again, and that she cannot tell anyone about her condition. Joel points in the direction they need to go, explaining he knows someone a few miles away who owes him a favor and might be able to get them a car. Some time later, they arrive at a town called Lincoln. As they walk through a forest, Ellie says she's never walked through the woods before and is impressed by how it looks and feels. As Joel and Ellie make their way through the town, Joel explains that the person they're meeting, named Bill, is a rather eccentric individual who doesn't like visitors. They enter a building where the door has been rigged with a trap. Joel gets caught and is left hanging upside down by a refrigerator counterweight. Ellie begins to cut the rope, but the noise attracts zombies. Joel defends Ellie from numerous zombies while still hanging. She eventually frees him, but he is immediately attacked. Someone beheads the zombie, saving Joel, and orders them to follow him. More zombies close in, but they reach a safe house just in time. It turns out the person who saved them is Bill. Bill handcuffs Ellie to a pipe, points a gun at Joel, and demands he get on his knees while checking him for infection. Ellie breaks the pipe and hits Bill in his shooting arm. Joel breaks up the fight, and Bill demands to know what they're doing in his town and who Ellie is. Joel explains that they need a car, but Bill claims there aren't any working ones. Joel reminds him of the favor he owes and suggests Bill could fix one. Bill reluctantly agrees, showing them a map of where to find parts, and warns them to follow him closely because the town is full of traps. They leave Bill's safe house, and Bill explains that they first need to head to his hidden armory for more guns and supplies before beginning their search for car parts. The group heads into an old church cellar. Ellie demands a gun, but Joel refuses, which angers her. Bill questions Joel about why he's escorting Ellie, wondering why Tess would approve of this kind of mission. Joel doesn't mention that Tess is dead, and instead just plays along. As Bill prepares a new shotgun for Joel, he informs him that a few months ago, a military caravan passed through town, but one of the trucks was overrun by zombies and crashed near a nearby high school. Bill believes the truck has a good battery they can use to replace the dead one in another car. The trio begins their mission to the high school by exiting through a church window on the top floor. They get a clear view of the school they need to reach, but Bill warns them that from this point forward, it's uncharted territory for him. They reach the truck, but a new horde of zombies begins to attack. They escape into the building through a window, where Joel struggles with a clicker, but Bill saves him. Inside, Joel and Ellie try to keep the zombies out while Bill searches for the battery in the truck. However, Bill comes to a devastating realization. The battery is gone, claiming someone else must have beaten them to it. In disbelief, he begins to panic. With no plan B, they flee deeper into the school and enter the gym, where a terrifying zombie, called a bloater, bursts through another doorway. Joel and Bill fight it off, protecting Ellie, and manage to kill it. They escape through a window and run through an alleyway, climbing a ladder that leads to another house's yard. They regroup inside the house where Joel, visibly frustrated, demands to know what to do next, but Bill explains again that someone must have stolen the battery before they arrived and doesn't have a plan now. An argument erupts, but then Bill notices something heartbreaking. He sees a man who has been hanging from the ceiling for quite some time. Joel asks who it is, and Bill explains the man's name is Frank. He says Frank used to be his partner but abandoned him some time ago. Bill cuts him down and notes that Frank has bite marks, leading them to conclude that he didn't want to turn into a zombie. They hear Ellie trying to start a truck in the garage. Bill checks the engine, and to his surprise, finds the battery they were looking for back at the school. Bill tests the engine, saying it works but will need a rolling start. Joel and Bill push the truck into the street, but it doesn't start. They push it further down the road to a hill, where the truck finally starts, just as a horde of zombies attacks. They jump into the back, and Ellie drives them to safety down the road. Joel and Bill have one final conversation. Bill hands Joel a rubber hose for siphoning gas from abandoned cars. Joel apologizes about Bill's friend Frank and says they're now even. Bill responds by demanding that they leave his town. Further down the road, Ellie shows Joel a comic book but is annoyed that it ends on a cliffhanger. Joel asks where she got it, and Ellie sheepishly admits she stole it from a pile of Bill's stuff. Joel asks what else she stole. Ellie pulls out a cassette tape that plays music from the early 20th century, which they listen to for the rest of the car ride. Ellie eventually falls asleep. It's clear they've been driving for many hours. Joel arrives at a large city called Pittsburgh, but the road is blocked by abandoned cars. He considers turning back, but ultimately decides to continue into the city via an alternate route. They approach a man who appears to be injured and asking for help. Ellie wants to assist him, but Joel knows it's a trap. He floors the gas pedal just as the man pulls a gun and starts shooting. Several other attackers begin throwing objects at the truck, causing it to crash into a nearby storefront. Ellie is pulled from the truck while Joel struggles with another assailant. Joel manages to escape and saves Ellie from one of the men. The remaining attackers open fire, and a gunfight ensues, where Joel manages to eliminate them. They open a nearby garage to escape into, but are met with a disturbing sight: bodies on tables that have been harvested for organs and belongings. Joel explains that the people who ambushed them are called hunters. Joel and Ellie now must find a new path through the city of Pittsburgh. Along the way, Ellie asks how Joel knew the guy asking for help was setting up an ambush. Joel admits he has been on both sides of ambushes. Ellie asks if he's killed any innocent people, but Joel ignores the question. They walk outside and see a pile of bodies burning in a fire. Ellie suggests they weren't infected and that it was likely done by hunters. Up the stairs, Joel sees a bridge in the distance that will lead them out of the city. As they walk through downtown Pittsburgh, Ellie begins to annoy Joel with a joke book she found. They continue through the gate of an old military checkpoint and walk to a street where a couple of hunters are in their path. The hunters head inside a hotel, and Joel and Ellie follow them inside. They sneak through the hotel and open an elevator door with a ladder inside. They maneuver their way onto another elevator roof, where Joel helps Ellie up to another floor, but the elevator collapses, causing Joel to fall multiple stories into the water below, separating him from Ellie. As Joel searches for a way up, he eliminates some unique, fast-moving zombies, and finds a keycard belonging to a security officer. He tries to enter a door with the keycard, but there's no power. He finds the power station and activates it, but it creates a lot of loud noise, attracting zombies to him. Joel sprints for the door and makes his way to another room, but hears hunters nearby. After quietly taking them out, he climbs up a ladder to the next floor, but is ambushed by another hunter and falls into a deep puddle below. The hunter attempts to drown Joel as he struggles to grab his gun, but he is saved when someone grabs the gun and shoots the hunter. The savior turns out to be Ellie. Joel is frustrated and doesn't appreciate Ellie's help, commenting that he's glad he didn't get his head blown off by a kid. Ellie becomes angry, demanding he acknowledge her heroic action, but Joel ignores her, stating they need to continue to the bridge. Back up the ladder, they continue through the hotel and head outside to a scaffold. Joel takes a hunting rifle from a decomposed body but is caught off guard by hunters outside. He explains to Ellie that he's going to go alone and clear the way. Ellie is frustrated that Joel doesn't trust her again, but to her surprise, Joel hands her the hunting rifle. He asks Ellie if she's ever handled a rifle. She responds that she's done some rat hunting with a BB gun. Joel teaches her how to use it, explaining that if he gets in trouble, she needs to be clutch and make every shot count. Joel hops down but is spotted and begins firing. To his surprise, Ellie makes some clutch shots on a few of the hunters. Once it's finally safe, Joel meets up with Ellie again. He takes the rifle back from her, then shows his trust by giving her one of the hunters' handguns. As they proceed, they see two people running in the street, only to be gunned down by hunters riding in a truck with a mounted machine gun. The hunters eliminate the two, searching their bodies for supplies, but find nothing of worth. Joel and Ellie make their way through an alleyway but are spotted by the truck, which opens fire on them. They run through back alleys and buildings, eventually losing their pursuers. Joel walks along a narrow ledge toward an open window, but is ambushed by someone inside. As Joel struggles, Ellie tries to stab the assailant, but she demands Joel to stop as they see a child pointing a gun at them. The man Joel was struggling with, named Henry, tells his younger brother, Sam, to stand down. Henry realizes Joel and Ellie aren't hunters, as the hunters wouldn't keep kids around, as they don't believe children are fit enough to survive. After everyone introduces themselves, Joel asks if there are any others. Henry explains there were, but they were ambushed when they entered the city looking for supplies and he doesn't know what happened to them. The group agrees to help each other, and Henry says he wants to take everyone to his safe house not far away. On the way, they enter a toy shop but quickly hide as the hunter truck passes by. Sam shows interest in a toy, but Henry scolds him, reminding him of their rule that they don't carry anything that isn't essential. As everyone leaves the toy shop, Ellie quietly picks up the toy Sam wanted and hides it. They arrive at the safe house, where Sam offers Ellie some blueberries to eat. Joel asks Henry why they haven't left the city yet. Henry explains that hunters constantly guard the bridge exit, but at night there are fewer patrols, giving them a chance to sneak through. They notice Ellie and Sam laughing and playing with the blueberries. Henry notes that Sam hasn't been happy in a long time. Joel returns to the conversation, asking Henry where he's headed. Henry says he's trying to head west to join the Fireflies. Joel questions his objective, and Henry becomes intense, telling Joel to worry about himself. Joel diffuses the tension by explaining they have a common interest and that he's also looking for the Fireflies. Henry reveals a map, pointing to an abandoned military radio station just outside the city where survivors from his group are supposed to meet by tomorrow. He suggests Joel and Ellie come with them and leave that night. Joel agrees and decides to get some rest until sunset. Later, Ellie wakes Joel up, telling him it's time to go. The group walks downstairs to the lower lobby. Outside the building, some hunters are using a large spotlight and having fun shooting at infected down the street. Joel and Henry take them out and begin opening the gate. As they open it, the machine gun truck shows up, but they close the door just in time. The hunters begin pounding on the door, using the truck in an attempt to ram through the gate. Joel helps Henry, Sam and Ellie up over a truck trailer, but the ladder breaks off, leaving Joel stranded below. Henry looks for a way to help, but instead decides to abandon Joel, and runs off with Sam. Ellie jumps back down, and together they open a nearby gate, barely escaping in time. They run through a building to a street, continuing to flee from the hunters. They reach a dead end. With the truck closing in, Ellie wants to jump, but Joel knows she can't swim. With no other options, Ellie jumps, and Joel follows her. He grabs Ellie in the water to keep her afloat, but he hits his head on a rock, knocking him out. Some time later, Joel wakes up on a beach with Ellie, Sam, and Henry. Henry is excited to see them, but Joel is furious. Joel takes Henry's gun, pushes him to the ground, and threatens him. As Henry pleads his case, Ellie steps in and tells Joel that Henry and Sam saved them from the river and that they would have drowned otherwise. Joel reluctantly accepts the situation but says nothing to Henry. Reunited again, they continue their mission to the radio tower, hoping to meet any survivors from Henry's previous group. They enter a sewer tunnel nearby, where they proceed for a long time down a dark path to a doorway. They open the door, but a sound trap activates, indicating that someone used to live down here. Joel finds a new shotgun called Shorty and makes his way down a new path to a small room, but they are ambushed by many zombies, implying that the people who used to live down here have turned. After taking them out, they make their way further to a gate. Joel opens the gate, but another trap activates. A large metal door separates the group, with Joel and Sam on one side, and Ellie and Henry on the other. Before they can figure out a plan, many zombies are heard running toward them. Henry and Ellie are forced to flee back into the tunnels. Joel protects Sam by neutralizing many zombies in their way. Further down the tunnel, Ellie is heard yelling, being chased by more zombies. Reunited again, Ellie shouts to run as there are too many of them. They enter a room where a door leads outside, but it's blocked from the other side. Henry lifts Sam and Ellie over into a gap above to unblock the door, leaving Joel and Henry to make a stand against the horde. Sam and Ellie unblock the door, where they escape to the outside and block it with a vending machine. Comically, Sam notices a large warning written on the wall, telling people that zombies are inside and not to enter. As they proceed into a nearby abandoned town, they see the radio tower in the distance. They jump off a ledge down to a street. A sniper takes a shot at Joel, causing the group to panic and hide behind a vehicle. Joel says he's going to flank the sniper and take him out. He carefully sneaks to the back of the sniper's house. As he searches for the assailant, he enters the sniper nest but is ambushed. Joel successfully neutralizes the sniper. Outside the window, a horde of zombies attacks the group. One grabs Sam, but Joel snipes it off of him. An overwhelming number of zombies appear. Joel realizes there are too many to deal with. He meets with the group downstairs where they decide to flee through a fence in the backyard. At the radio tower, the group cooks a meal on a portable stove, with Joel and Henry telling stories about motorcycles. Ellie, unable to relate, jokes about giving them their privacy and leaves for the next room. Henry then mentions that he doesn't think the rest of his group will show up anytime soon. In the next room, Sam is taking stock of the food they found. Ellie notices Sam is in a bad mood and tries to cheer him up. Sam asks Ellie how she doesn't seem to be afraid of anything, and what she's really scared of. Ellie says she thinks scorpions are kind of creepy, but Sam doesn't take her answer seriously. Ellie then gives a real answer and says she's scared of ending up alone someday. Ellie brings out the toy she took from the toy shop and gives it to Sam. As she leaves the room, Sam throws the toy away, and in a devastating realization, shows he's been bitten on the leg by a zombie. The next morning, Ellie wakes up to Henry cooking. He tells her she should go wake Sam. Ellie enters the room and sees Sam standing awkwardly while twitching. He attacks Ellie, and Joel shouts that Sam is turning. Joel grabs a gun, but Henry fires a warning shot at him, shouting that Sam is his brother. Joel defies Henry and goes for the gun anyway, but Henry finally shoots Sam. Henry is in total shock and becomes emotional, trying to come to terms with what he's just done. Joel tries to disarm Henry's gun while comforting him, but Henry points the gun at Joel, blaming him and saying this whole situation is his fault. Before Joel can respond, Henry turns the gun on himself. A couple of months later, it is now fall. Ellie and Joel arrive in Jackson County. Ellie asks Joel if he's ready to see his brother, but Joel says he doesn't know how to feel. As they walk through the woods, Ellie asks Joel about what happened between him and Tommy. Joel explains that they saw the world differently, and that Tommy's last words to him were that he never wanted to see his face again. They arrive at a hydroelectric power plant, where they make their way to a gate. Joel tries to open it, but several people suddenly point guns at them, ordering them to drop their weapons. Joel explains that he didn't know anyone was there and that they just need to get to the other side. A man tells the guards to stand down, saying he knows Joel. The man is Tommy, Joel's brother. They hug, amazed that the other is still alive. Tommy introduces his wife, Maria. Maria asks if they are hungry and invites them inside. Joel asks what they are doing at the plant. Tommy explains that they've been trying to restore power while dealing with bandits. Maria is called away to witness the power possibly being restored, but Tommy and Joel offer to check it out instead while the girls get some food. Tommy says he has something special for Joel, which he brought back from his home in Texas last year. He hands Joel a picture of him and Sarah, but Joel refuses to take it. Joel says he needs to talk to Tommy privately. On the way, they witness the turbines powering up, bringing electricity back to the plant. They head into a private room, where Joel remarks that he's been on quite an adventure. Tommy suspects it has something to do with Ellie, and Joel confirms that she's the reason. Joel reveals Ellie's secret that she is immune to the infection, but Tommy is skeptical at first. Joel explains that he needs to hand Ellie off to the fireflies and asks Tommy to take her, but Tommy refuses, saying he hasn't seen any fireflies in years and left them long ago. The conversation becomes tense. Joel insists that Tommy owes him for keeping him alive through the years of the outbreak. Tommy, however, says half-heartedly that it wasn't even worth it. Joel becomes furious, claiming he's brought Tommy the cure to mankind, and that Tommy is playing games at the worst possible time. Suddenly, a siren sounds in the distance. Tommy tells Joel the plant is under attack by bandits. They rush out and help neutralize the attackers. They find Maria and Ellie. Ellie recounts what happened during the attack. Seeing her shaken, Tommy seems to have a change of heart about helping Joel and Ellie. Outside, Maria scolds Tommy, upset that he's thinking about leaving the plant to help with Ellie. Ellie asks what they're fighting about and whether it's about her, but Joel chooses not to explain anything, irritating Ellie. Tommy declares to Maria that he is obligated to help. Maria has some choice words for Joel before storming back inside. Tommy tells Joel he'll help, but then gets a call over the radio that Ellie has stolen a horse and run off. They grab a couple of horses and follow Ellie's tracks along a long road and into the woods. The trail leads to an old abandoned house in the country. Joel enters, calling for Ellie. She replies from upstairs, easing any immediate concern. He finds her in a room reading a girl's old journal from before the outbreak. Joel tells her it's time to leave, but Ellie refuses. She accuses him of trying to get rid of her the whole time they've been together. Joel insists it's for her own good, but Ellie becomes emotional. She reveals that Maria told her about Sarah, which enrages Joel. He tells Ellie she doesn't know what loss is, but Ellie is at her breaking point. She says that everyone she's ever cared about has either died or left her, except Joel, indicating that she's comfortable with him and doesn't want to separate as he's the closest father figure she's had in some time. Joel crushes Ellie, replying that she's not his daughter and he's definitely not her dad. Suddenly, Tommy bursts in, frantically explaining that bandits are outside and some have already entered the house. After quickly dealing with the attackers, they return to their horses. Ellie, visibly dejected, prepares for the ride back to the power plant. On the trail back, Joel sees Ellie's sadness and begins to rethink his decision. They arrive at a small city with a scenic view. Joel asks Tommy where the Fireflies lab is. Tommy says it's at the science building at the University of Eastern Colorado, describing it as a giant mirror. Then Joel makes a surprise decision. He tells Ellie to hand her horse over to Tommy. Confused, Tommy asks why. Joel says Tommy should stay with Maria, and that he doesn't want to endanger him or make Maria a widow. It's clear Joel has decided to take Ellie himself. They say their goodbyes and begin their new journey. Some time later, they arrive at the university. They ride further and see the science building off in the distance. Along the way, they see some monkeys roaming around the grounds, which Ellie enjoys. They arrive at the science building expecting to see people, but are disheartened when nobody is around. Joel spots a way inside through a gap in a wall. After entering the building, they begin searching. As they look for useful supplies, a loud noise is heard on the floor above them. As they carefully sneak around, a standing light is tipped over behind them. Joel searches the area, but finds nothing. He opens a door and sees monkeys rummaging through things, which turns out to be the source of all the noise. They enter a room with a corpse sitting in a chair. Joel plays a voice recorder found on the body, which explains that all the Fireflies have left and that the man doesn't have much time to live. The recorder also gives the new location of the Fireflies lab, which happens to be St. Mary's Hospital in Salt Lake City, Utah. Joel spots someone with a flashlight outside the window. The flashlight points toward them, and then a shot is fired. They decide to evacuate. Joel opens a door but is ambushed by a bandit. The two fall off a ledge, and Joel is impaled on a metal spike. Ellie climbs down to check on him. She pulls him off the spike, but Joel is severely injured. Close to the exit, Joel nearly passes out, forcing Ellie to eliminate 2 more bandits on her own. Outside the building, a bandit who had stolen their horse is caught off guard, and Ellie quickly neutralizes him. They ride away, but Joel falls off the horse and is near death. Ellie tries to wake him, but it's no use. Some time later, it is winter. Ellie hunts a rabbit, commenting on how it's not much food but will have to do. She spots a deer and decides to hunt it. She hits it with multiple arrows and follows its blood trail to an abandoned mining town. As she checks out the deer, she hears a noise behind her and demands that whoever's there show themselves. 2 men appear, but don't seem aggressive. The man on the left, named David, introduces himself and his friend, James. David explains he's from a larger group that includes women and children, and he wants to trade for the deer meat. He offers weapons and clothes, but Ellie demands medicine. David agrees and sends James to retrieve it. Ellie orders David to hand over his rifle, and he complies. David offers to drag the deer into a shelter and starts a fire to keep warm while they wait for James. David continues to be friendly with Ellie, asking for her name, but she remains distant. A clicker shows up, and David pulls out another gun and shoots it. The noise attracts more infected, and they begin to swarm, but the pair escape through a back exit. They retreat across a bridge to a dead-end room, where they are forced to make a stand against the horde. A bloater appears, but they manage to eliminate it. All falls quiet as they observe their surroundings from the bridge. They return to the shelter, where David begins to tell a revealing story. He explains that a few weeks back, he sent some men out to search for food, but only a few returned. The survivors told him the others had been slaughtered by a crazy man traveling with a little girl, pointing at Ellie and implying that she is the girl. Ellie becomes suspicious of David's intentions, but he remains friendly. James appears, pointing a gun at Ellie, but David tells him to stand down and hand over the medicine. Just as Ellie is leaving, David offers her protection, saying she won't last long on her own, but she refuses. Ellie flees back to her horse. She rides to an abandoned house and enters the garage. She runs to the basement, where Joel is very sick, but still alive. Ellie has stitched up his wound and injects him with the medicine. She sleeps through the night, but wakes up the next day to voices outside. Ellie realizes David's men have tracked her to the house. She tells Joel she's going to draw them away and that she'll be back for him. As she quietly makes her escape on horseback, a man grabs her, but she stabs him. The men hesitate to shoot, as David wants her alive, but they shoot anyway. Ellie attempts to escape, but the horse is shot, causing her to fall down a small cliffside. She makes a run for a nearby cabin but is spotted. Ellie sneaks through the town as more of David's men hunt her. While searching for a way back to Joel, she spots the path that leads to him. She enters a large lodge and makes her way to the front entrance. David grabs Ellie and puts her in a stranglehold. She struggles with him and tries to stab him, but she's too late and passes out. A short time later, Ellie wakes up in a cell. She makes a grim discovery: David's people are cannibals, as she witnesses James cutting a human body into parts. James notices that Ellie has woken up and goes to get David. David brings her a meal and a drink, but she questions what's in it. David promises it's the deer meat from earlier. Starving, Ellie decides to eat it. David interviews her about the cruelty of survival and the men that Joel and Ellie have killed recently. He asks Ellie for her name, but she shoves the meal tray at him, calling him out for being disingenuous. David remains friendly, saying he needs to convince the others that she can come around and eventually live among their group. He creepily places his hand on Ellie's, claiming she's special. Ellie pretends to enjoy his company, but twists his fingers in an attempt to grab the keys hanging from his pants. She fails to get the keys, and David becomes angry. Ellie then decides to give him her name in an effort to appease him, but David now replies that he's going to chop her into tiny pieces tomorrow. Joel wakes up back at the house and appears to be in much better health, though his stitches prevent him from moving quickly. He begins his search for Ellie by stepping outside and shouting for her. He walks through an alleyway and is ambushed by 2 of David's men. Despite being outnumbered, Joel wins the fight, incapacitating both men. He ties them up and brings them into a house for interrogation. Joel sits in front of one of them, demanding to know where Ellie is. The man claims he doesn't know anything, so Joel stabs him in the knee. In great pain, the man finally gives up the information, explaining that David is keeping her in a nearby town. Joel sticks the handle end of the knife in the man's mouth and makes him mark the location on a map. The man complies and tells Joel to confirm it with his friend, but Joel decides he has enough information and neutralizes them both. Back at Ellie's cell, David and James grab her. During the struggle, Ellie bites David. They throw her onto the table, and just as David is about to use his machete on her, Ellie desperately claims he's infected and tells him to check her arm for proof. David chuckles and doesn't believe her, but agrees to play along. To his shock, Ellie's infected wound appears real. James begins to panic, saying it looks legitimate, but David dismisses it, claiming she would have turned into a zombie long ago. While they are distracted, Ellie grabs the machete and slices James. David pulls a gun, but Ellie escapes into a closet, grabs a knife, and flees through a window. She eliminates one of David's men for his gun and begins running down the street, but gets lost in the process. Eventually, she finds an open window leading into an old restaurant and jumps inside. She exits through a side door, but is jumped by David. During the struggle, David confiscates her gun, knocking over an oil lantern and setting the building on fire. While he is distracted by the fire, Ellie hides, but David locks the door, challenging her to try to take the keys from him. Ellie sneaks around the restaurant and surprise attacks David from behind with her knife, but he shakes her off, and they both end up unconscious. Joel, still searching, arrives at the town marked on his map. He enters a room filled with belongings from numerous people and is horrified to see Ellie's backpack on a shelf. In the next room, he discovers human bodies that have been prepared for consumption, realizing the people in this town are cannibals. As he exits the room, he notices a building on fire. Inside the restaurant, Ellie and David are unconscious from their previous fight. Ellie wakes up first, but is weak from being knocked out. She slowly crawls toward David's machete, but he kicks her away. He begins choking her, but Ellie grabs the machete and enters a rage, slicing David multiple times, and getting her revenge. As she chops up David, Joel arrives, pulls her off of him, and reassures her that he's there for her now. They escape the building before the fire consumes them. Several weeks later, it's spring. They arrive in Salt Lake City. Joel calls for Ellie, but she doesn't respond and seems distracted. As they walk, Joel says that when all of this is over, he'll teach her how to play guitar, but Ellie still seems distant. They pass through an abandoned bus station. Ellie grabs a ladder for Joel but drops it, yelling for him to come see something amazing. She leads him to an open area, where a wild giraffe is eating leaves. They share a precious moment, getting close enough to pet the giraffe. They then reach a balcony overlooking an entire herd of giraffes. Joel stands beside Ellie, sharing a rare, peaceful moment. Even in the cruel world they live in, the giraffes are thriving. Joel brings up a critical proposition, suggesting they don't have to continue to the Fireflies and could instead return to the power plant to live with Tommy and the others. Ellie questions Joel, saying they can't give up after everything they've been through and that it has to mean something. She assures him that once they're done, she'll go wherever he wants. Along the way, Ellie gets Joel's undivided attention. She explains Maria showed her the picture of Sarah, and admits to stealing it for him. Joel can't help but accept the picture this time, mentioning that no matter how hard he tries, he can't escape his past. After navigating a long tunnel, they come to a fast-moving river. They carefully make their way across, but as Joel jumps onto a bus, it dislodges and begins to sink. He tries to climb back up, but is sent downstream trapped inside the bus. Ellie attempts to grab him from above, but the bus tips over, sending her underwater and further downstream. Joel swims to Ellie, who appears to be lifeless. He grabs her and rises to the surface, but quickly realizes he needs to perform CPR. As he attempts to resuscitate her, two strangers point a gun at him demanding he put his hands up, but Joel ignores them, and gets knocked out by one of the strangers' guns. Joel wakes up in a hospital, surprised to see Marlene by his bedside. She apologizes for him being knocked out, explaining the strangers understandably didn't know who he was, and welcoming him to the Fireflies as she's impressed he made it. Joel demands to see Ellie, but Marlene says he can't, and that he doesn't need to worry about her anymore as she's currently being prepped for surgery. She explains that Ellie's immunity is due to a mutated tumor on her brain, and once removed, it could be reverse engineered into a vaccine. Joel points out that because of the location of the tumor, it will kill Ellie. Marlene agrees with his assessment, but insists there's no other option. Joel becomes agitated, demanding they find someone else to experiment on. Marlene asserts that there is no one else as a guard knees Joel in the back. Marlene pleads with Joel, saying Ellie's immunity could be a gift to humanity, but Joel refuses to accept it. Marlene orders the guard to escort Joel off the property and tells him to shoot if Joel resists. The guard escorts Joel at gunpoint down the hall, but Joel stops, disarms him, and demands the location of the operating room. After the guard reveals it, Joel executes him. Joel has grown to accept Ellie as his own daughter, crossing a point of no return and officially making it his mission to rescue her. As he heads to the surgery room, he eliminates many Firefly guards. The noise draws more guards toward him, but he manages to sneak past them. Joel looks through a window where more guards are preparing to defend the surgeons. He quietly enters the surgery wing, eliminating any remaining guards. After blocking the door behind him, Joel walks into the surgery room. As he enters, Joel is in disbelief. The surgeons panic, and one grabs a scalpel, threatening Joel. Joel disarms him and stabs him with it. As he unplugs Ellie from the operating table, an alarm sounds. He carries Ellie through the halls and manages to find an elevator. The guards spot him and demand he drop Ellie, but Joel ignores them and escapes just in time. They arrive at a parking garage, but to Joel's surprise, Marlene appears, pointing a gun at him and demanding he give Ellie up. Marlene tries to convince Joel that Ellie's death will be for the greater good of mankind, but Joel doesn't seem convinced. Marlene offers to put her gun away, asking Joel to do the right thing. The scene cuts to Joel driving away in a car, exiting Salt Lake City. Ellie awakens in the back seat. She's confused about what she's wearing and asks Joel what happened. Joel begins to articulate a lie, saying they found the Fireflies, but that there are many others like Ellie who are immune to the infection, and none of them have led to a working vaccine. The scene cuts back to Joel and Marlene, where Joel shoots her in the stomach. Joel continues to lie, saying the Fireflies have given up on creating a cure, and that he's taking Ellie back to Tommy's in Jackson City. The scene cuts again to just after Joel shoots Marlene. He loads Ellie into the back seat of a car and walks over to Marlene. Marlene begs Joel to let her live, but Joel says she would just come after them, and executes her. Some time later, their car breaks down just outside Jackson City. They decide to walk the rest of the way. Joel tells a story about how Sarah would have been good friends with Ellie, but Ellie is distant and doesn't seem to care. Joel helps Ellie up a cliff, but she tells Joel to wait. Ellie shares a story about her bite wound, recounting how she wasn't alone at the time and her friend Riley was also bitten. Ellie goes on to explain that she accepted she was going to die, and expresses survivor's guilt, mentioning that Riley, Tess, and Sam had all died, yet she continues to live. Joel tries to reassure her that none of those events are her fault, and that to live in this world, you have to keep fighting for something. Ellie demands that he confirm everything he has said about what happened with the Fireflies is the truth. Joel continues his lie, and says yes. Ellie, with some reluctance, accepts his answer, officially ending an incredible story. If you've made it to the end, feel free to share your thoughts, such as your favorite character, or whether you think Joel's decision at the end was justified. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.